ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
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 ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय.
So, last class we saw till verse 8, correct? Okay. And we were actually in the middle of this section where Suta Goswami is speaking to Shaunaka Rishi and the other sages, and he's talking about the goal of all activities being devotional service to the Supreme Lord. And we also saw the verse 6th and 7th, which was the answer for the first two questions, which were asked in the 9th and 11th verse of the first chapter of this canto. And 8 to 13 will be a discussion on the actual dharma, what dharma is supposed to be, and its purpose. And we saw that it's in reference to or with perspective of the second verse of the first chapter. This is Dharma Projita Kaitavavatra. Okay. And in the 8th verse, it's defined that if this Dharma Svanushtita Pumsam, this occupational activities of a man, if it does not perform or it does not lead one to attraction, it does not provoke attraction for the message, Vishwaksena Katha, then it's a Shrama Evahi Kevalam. It's a useless waste of time. Okay. So from 9 and 10, okay, so these two verses will basically, Suta Goswami will speak that how material sense gratification is not the goal of the prescribed duties. Inquiry into the absolute truth is. Okay, so the 9th verse, he will say, Dharmasya ह्यापवर्गस्य नार्थोऽर्थायोपकल्पते नार्थस्य धर्मैकान्तस्य कामो लाभाय हि स्मृतः. All occupational engagements are certainly meant for ultimate liberation. Okay, so occupational engagements means prescribed duties based on the varna. They are meant for ultimate liberation. They should never be performed for material gain. Furthermore, according to sages, one who is engaged in the ultimate occupational service should never use material gain to cultivate sense gratification. Okay, in this verse there are two things. Okay, one is that occupational engagements should not be performed for material gain. Okay, so the desire to perform or the duties which are performing, it should not be done with the desire for material gain. And the second part says, furthermore, according to the sages, one who is engaged in the ultimate occupational service should never use material gain to cultivate sense gratification. So, if you follow dharma, automatically there will be material gain also. But that material gain, or whatever artha comes from your dharma, that should not be used for cultivating sense gratification. Okay. One thing is the activity should not be performed for material gain, and whatever material gain or whatever artha comes, that should also not be used for sense gratification. Okay, so this is clear. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada speaks about this cycle of dharma, artha and kama, and he says that there are different kinds of occupational engagements, including those of religion, which are all meant for material gain. And even in the Vedic literatures, all sorts of religious performances, for all sorts of religious performances, an allurement of material gain is offered, and most people are attracted by such allurements or blessings of religiosity. So in the Vedic literatures, even in the Puranas, we will see that if you perform this particular activity, then you will gain merit of not feeding these many brahmanas or of doing Ashwamedha Yajna, like that. There are so many statements. So that is actually a motivating factor for people to perform those religious activities. Okay. So this is a case, a very good case, where occupational engagements or dharmic or religious duties are performed for material gain, right? So this is done for material gain. And he explains this cycle of occupational engagements includes so-called religiosity followed by material gain, and material gain followed by fulfillment of desires. So dharma, artha and kama. Sense gratification is the general way for all sorts of fully occupied men. But in the statement of Suta Goswami, as per the verdict of Srimad Bhagavatam, this is nullified by the present shloka. So one should not engage himself in any sort of occupational service for material gain only. Nor should material gain be utilized for sense gratification. How material gain should be utilized is described as follows. So that will be discussed in the next verse. Okay. कामस्य नेन्द्रिय प्रीतिर्लाभो जीवेत यावता जीवस्य तत्व जिज्ञासा नार्थो यश्चेह कर्मभिः. Life's desires should never be directed towards sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life or self-preservation, since a human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth. Nothing else should be the goal of one's work. So this defines the goal of your occupational activities. So life's desires should never be directed towards sense gratification. And one should desire only healthy life or self-preservation. So whatever material gain comes, minimal amount of that, whatever is required for a healthy life and for self-preservation should be used. Because this human form of life is meant for inquiry about the absolute. So it's like a tool. This human form of life is like a tool with which you can do something great, actually, inquire about the absolute truth. So because it's a tool, if you don't sharpen your tool, you'll not be able to work with it, right? This famous story is there of sharpening the axe before cutting the tree, right? If the axe is not sharp, it takes that much amount of effort to cut the tree. But if the axe is sharp, if the person has sharpened his axe, then he can cut it nicely. He can cut the tree nicely. Okay, so it's like this. So human being, this human form of life, even though it's a material body, still it's a very good tool which can be used for inquiring about the absolute truth and for rendering devotional service. So therefore, whatever material gain comes, only that much amount, as much as required, should be used for self-preservation, and everything else should be used for inquiring about the absolute truth. And finally, as we understand, devotional service. And nothing else should be the goal of one's work. Okay, so Srila Prabhupada continues explaining the disease of sense gratification, and he says that in politics, social service, altruism, philanthropy, and ultimately in religion also, and even in salvation, the very same tint of sense gratification is ever increasingly predominant. See, when he says even in salvation, salvation means what? You go beyond the three modes, even though you are entering the Brahma Jyoti. So what is sense gratification here? The sense gratification here is the desire to be independently happy from Krishna. Okay, so when you keep yourself in the center, or when we keep ourselves in the center, that is sense gratification. That's the definition. Does not matter whether we have a material body or whether we are aspiring for moksha. If we are in the center, then it comes under the purview, or it comes under the category of sense gratification. Okay. And Prabhupada gives the example of the modern democratic system where the leaders are voted by normal people, and the leaders must always disappoint the voters by not satisfying their senses. The same is applicable in all other fields. No one is serious about the problems of life, and even those who are path on salvation desire to become one with the absolute truth and desire to commit spiritual suicide for sense gratification. Okay. Then he speaks about regulated sense engagement, and there he speaks about this marriage or a combination of man and woman is necessary for progeny, but it is not meant for sense enjoyment. And in the absence of voluntary restraint, there is propaganda for family planning. But foolish men do not know that family planning is automatically executed as soon as there is search after the absolute truth. Okay, so this family planning is an artificial method which people engage in when they are not able to control their senses. If they engage in excessive sexual activity, not for generating progeny, but only for satisfying their senses. But no, they don't want progeny. So therefore, what they do is they use horrible methods and lots of artificial methods to do this family planning. So even though they engage in sexual activity, still they don't want to produce children. So now to stop that, this natural process, to stop that, they engage in all kinds of horrible activities. But these foolish men do not know that if a person is inquiring or he is directing his life's desires towards absolute truth, automatically all his senses are controlled. So that is regulated sense gratification. So the goal should be seeking the absolute truth. Okay. So those who are serious students should always be overwhelmed with the work of researching about the absolute truth. And what that absolute truth is explained in the next verse. So Srila Prabhupada says that. Okay. Vadanti tat tattvavidas tattvam yajnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdyate. Learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma or Bhagavan. Okay, it's a very famous verse. All of you would already know this verse and you know the explanation of this also. The absolute truth is non-dual. Okay, so it's one single entity. It's non-dual. It's Advaya. But it is perceived in three different ways. Either as Brahman, either as Paramatma or as Bhagavan. So it does not mean the absolute truth there are three absolute truths. It does not mean there are three absolute truths. There is Brahman, that's separate absolute truth. Then there is Paramatma and there is Bhagavan. No. It's the same absolute truth, but based on the perceiver's vision, it is perceived in three different ways. It's either perceived as impersonal Brahman or as localized Paramatma, who is within the hearts of all living entities, or as Bhagavan, Shat Aishwarya Purna Bhagavan. Okay. So the absolute truth is both subject and object, and there is no qualitative difference there. Okay, what does this mean? Both subject and object. Can you guess? Or you have read this, right? So
Cause and effect.
Cause and effect. Yes.
Bhagavan and Brahman, the effulgence.
Bhagavan and effulgence. Yeah, it basically means the Lord and his energies. Okay, because absolute truth means only these two things. The Lord as him and his energies. And both of them are spiritual. So there is no qualitative difference between these two. Okay. So Bhagavan or the personality of Godhead is the last word of the absolute truth. Paramatma is the partial representation of the personality of Godhead. So this we will see. We will discuss more about Paramatma in this chapter and in the next chapter. And impersonal Brahman is the glowing effulgence of the personality of Godhead as the sun rays are to the sun god. Okay, so this example also, you will be very familiar with it. In Bhagavad Gita, this second chapter, which was the 11th verse, Shri Bhagavan Vacha, right? So there, Srila Prabhupada in the purport, he explains about this Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. He explains the whole concept of Bhagavan. And he says that it can be compared to the sun. The effulgent rays from the sun is the realization or the understanding of the effulgent rays from the sun is your Brahman realization. The sun disk, where you can see the form. If the sun rays are there, you are blinded by the sun rays, you will not be able to perceive any form of that. So that's like Brahman realization. But when you perceive the form, just like a disk, just like a circle, then you understand, okay, the absolute truth has a form also. And beyond that, he has no other realization. He just knows that there is a form. Paramatma is there in the heart and he has a form. That's it. Who is he? Okay, what are his activities? What are his pastimes? What is his source? What does he do? Not much understanding is there. Okay, so it's just sun disk. He can see a form is there. And then he can enter, the one who knows Bhagavan, he can enter into the sun globe. And there he can see everything. So one who knows the sun globe, he also knows both the sun disk as well as the effulgence. Okay, so it's like this. One who knows Bhagavan, he knows both Paramatma as well as Brahman. Okay. So perfect seers of the absolute truth know well that the above three features of the one absolute truth are different perspective views seen from different angles of vision. Okay, so if something is there, and you just see. It's just a difference of perception. It's a difference of vision. It does not mean there are three different things. Okay, and Srila Prabhupada speaks about the relative and absolute realm, making a comparison between this material realm and the absolute realm. In material realm, everything is relative. Okay, the knower is the superior energy, but that which is known is inferior energy. Right? The knower is the living entity, and that which is known is the kshetra. Right? Kshetra and kshetrajna. In 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, we have discussed this. So there are two kshetrajnas. The Lord is there and we are also there. So we are both spiritual. So one who can know is spiritual, and that which is to be known in the material realm is material. No? It's inferior energy. So there is duality of inferior and superior energy in the relative realm. But in the spiritual realm, in the absolute realm, both the knower and the known are of the same spiritual energy. There is no difference between the energy and energetic, but there is a difference of quality of energies. The absolute realm and the living entities are of the same spiritual superior energy, but the material world is inferior energy. Right? Okay, so we know this. Chit, Achit and Ishvara. So your Chit is your living and spiritual energy. Achit is your material inferior energy, and Ishvara is the controller of both, who is also Chit. No, he is also Chit Vigraha. No, he is also conscious. Okay. So then next verse explains how. Okay, so we have seen useless dharma, shrama eva hi kevalam here, and then we also saw that material sense gratification should not be the goal, and whatever material gain we get should be used for self-preservation, and human life is meant for inquiring into the absolute truth. Okay, and then we also saw what that absolute truth is. Okay, the three aspects of the absolute truth, and now the next verse will tell that this absolute truth can be realized by devotional service. Okay. Tachattadhana munayo jnana vairagya yuktaya pashyantyatmani chatmanam bhaktya shrutagrahitaya. The seriously inquisitive student or sage, well equipped with knowledge and detachment, realizes that absolute truth by rendering devotional service in terms of what he has heard from the Vedanta Shruti. Okay. So, complete realization of the absolute truth is attained by rendering devotional service. So, this is an opposition, or this completely negates the Mayavadic understanding, okay, of knowing Brahman or knowing the absolute truth, because this does not say that okay, impersonal Brahman can be known through jnana, okay, Paramatma can be known through yoga. Yes, that is there. But then if you want to know the absolute truth in all his three features, then the only way is devotional service. You cannot know the absolute truth completely just by this jnana process or by the yoga process. Karmis anyway, no, they don't even inquire about the absolute truth. So we don't even have to consider that. So absolute truth can be known only by rendering devotional service. In terms of what? In terms of the Vedanta Shruti. Right? So devotional service should be backed by what is given in the Shastra. Shruti Smriti Puranadi Pancharatri Vidindina Ekantiki Hari Bhakti Utpatani Eva Kalpati. So bhakti should be substantiated by the scriptures. Okay. Then one can realize the absolute truth. So Prabhupada writes, there are 4 different types of human beings: the karmis, the jnanis, the yogis, and the devotees. Okay, so he explains these 4, and he says that the Supreme Person is realized by devotional service, which is backed by full knowledge and detachment from material association. Okay, so now devotional service will lead to knowledge and detachment. We saw that, right? Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janatyashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayat Ahitukam. Right? Jnana and Vairagya arises from devotional service. And when one is equipped with this Jnana and Vairagya, then rendering devotional service at that level again elevates him to the realization of absolute truth. So it's like these two work together. But the starting point is devotional service, and the same devotional service will also lead you to the realization of the absolute truth. Okay. So the means of realizing Brahman and Paramatma, the paths of Jnana and Yoga, are also imperfect means of realizing the absolute truth. Devotional service, which is based on the foreground of full knowledge, combined with detachment from material association, and which is fixed by the oral reception of the Vedanta Shruti, is the only perfect method by which the seriously inquisitive student can realize the absolute truth. So devotional service, it should be backed by knowledge and detachment, and it should be based on oral reception of the Vedanta Shruti, based on the scriptures. This is the perfect method by which a seriously inquisitive student can realize the absolute truth. So it's like a key, So whatever we are doing, this is what we are supposed to do. We are supposed to render devotional service. We should strive to gain transcendental knowledge about the absolute truth. Okay. We should be detached from all kinds of material association, and all of these things should be based on the Vedanta Shruti, on scriptures. And this will lead to the realization of absolute truth, which is Brahman, Paramatma, which as devotees we should not be concerned about, as practicing devotees, but Bhagavan realization happens through this process. Okay, so it's an important point. Then he says that, okay, we are speaking about devotees, and there are three classes of devotees. So there are material devotees who are more attached to material benefit than transcendental profit, but still, because they have come for devotional service, by the association of devotees over a period of time, they'll get purified. And Prabhupada specifically makes this point that one has to raise himself at least to the stage of a second class devotee and thus become eligible to know the absolute truth. Okay. So one should not remain a Kanishthaadhikari for eternity. Okay. One is supposed to elevate himself to the Madhyamadhikari platform. And then he gives a comparison of a professional person who's engaged in reciting Bhagavatam and the personality of devotee, the person Bhagavata. So this is for this, Prabhupada explains about this oral reception based on the Vedanta Shruti, right? So whom should we hear from? That also is a very important factor. Whom are we hearing from? Are we hearing from a professional man, or are we hearing from a Bhagavata, a pure devotee of the Lord? Okay, so that makes a difference. You might be hearing the message of Shastra, but if it's not coming from the lips of a pure devotee, then it will not have effect, Sarpochishtha. Okay, Prabhupada writes about this. He says that one should be a representative of Shukdev Goswami, like Sutta Goswami, and a neophyte devotee makes a show of hearing from the professional man just to satisfy his senses, but that's not proper. So one should be very careful about the faulty process. The holy messages of Godhead as inculcated in the Bhagavad Gita or the Srimad Bhagavatam are undoubtedly transcendental subjects. But even though they are so, such transcendental matters are not to be received from the professional man who spoils them as the serpent spoils milk simply by the touch of his tongue. Okay. So the person should be Shruta Grihitaya. Okay. So he should be prepared, or sincere devotee must be prepared to hear the Vedic literatures left by the previous authorities from a devotee Bhagavata. And without hearing and following the instructions, the show of devotional service becomes worthless and therefore a sort of disturbance in the path of devotional service. It's basically a translation of the Shruti Smriti Purana verse. Okay. By assimilation of such messages from the Vedic literatures, one can see the all-pervading localized aspect of the personality of Godhead within his own self constantly. And this is called Samadhi. So this is your Dhyana Vastita Tadkatena Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yoginaha. So Prabhupada's purports, if you see, you'll find it several places. He's basically giving a translation of those verses which are there sprinkled throughout the Bhagavatam. Okay, so in this purport itself, once he gives the Shruti Smriti, and he gives this verse. Okay, then, next is, therefore, the highest dharma is to please the Supreme Lord Hari, because the devotional service is the only way to know the absolute truth. Atah pumbirgvishashrestha varnashrama vibhagashah svanushthitasya dharmasya samsiddhir haritoshanam. O best among the twice born, it is therefore concluded that the highest perfection one can achieve by discharging the duties prescribed for one's own occupation according to caste divisions and orders of life is to please the personality of Godhead. Okay. So now this is in response to your 8th verse. Like dharmas svanushtita pumsa vishvaksena kathavasya notpade tedirapi shama evahi kevalam. So how this svanushtita dharmasya, how it should be performed? It should be performed such that samsiddhir haritoshanam, Lord Hari is pleased. Yeah, so Srila Prabhupada in his purport, he speaks about two things. There are two goals of Varnashrama. One is a healthy social system and pleasing of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when Varnashrama system is being followed, the society becomes healthy and it becomes conducive for rendering devotional service. And the goal of following this Varnashrama institution is pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this about this healthy social state we will see in this canto, but in the later chapters. So Srila Prabhupada will speak a lot in his purports as we go to the later chapters of this canto. So we'll discuss at that time. So here Srila Prabhupada says that in each and every one of the above mentioned divisions of life, means the Varna and Ashrama, the aim must be to place the supreme authority of the personality of Godhead. This should be the only goal. There should not be any other goal. The Varnashrama institution is constructed to enable one to realize the absolute truth. Right? So there are people who challenge why Varnashrama is required. But Srila Prabhupada very clearly states here that the Varnashrama institution is constructed so that one can situate himself so nicely that he'll be able to realize the absolute truth. The institution of the Varnashrama is utilized by selfish men to post an artificial predominance over the weaker section. So this is where this caste system came into picture. Determining Varna based on birth and forcing a person to do some activities. Okay, so this institution Varnashrama happened. Okay, as Kali Yuga progressed, then the Brahminical class, even though they were not qualified, they just pushed themselves as the leaders of the society, and because of that, the people who are supposed to follow these Brahmanas, they could see the Brahmanas are not qualified, but they're just doing. They are stamping their authority on top of us, which even though they are not Brahminically qualified. So then protests started. It's a big history in India. So the protest started, and the Brahminical society was the cause of creation of this caste system. Okay. The divisions of caste and orders of life are meant for smooth social intercourse and high-thinking self-realization, and not for any other purpose. Okay. And here in the statement of the Bhagavatam is that the highest aim of life or the highest perfection of the institution of the Varnashrama Dharma is to cooperate jointly for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. So all the four Varnas should cooperate with each other so that Supreme Lord is satisfied. Okay. Now, next two verses will speak about performing devotional service, and then a rhetorical question is asked that who will not be attracted to that. Okay, till this point now, from 8 to 13, now the focus was on Dharma. Okay, on performing Varnashrama Dharma and how it is meant to render devotional service. Now these two verses will project that, okay, even though we have discussed this, the essence is devotional service. Okay. So performing devotional service is what is most important. So tasmad, therefore, tasmad ekena manasa bhagavan satvatam patihi shrotavyah kirtitavyascha dhyayah pujaschcha nityada. So Varnashrama is meant to lead to devotional service. So therefore, devotional service is rendered by, okay, let's see the translation. Therefore, with one pointed attention, ekena manasa, one should constantly hear about, glorify, remember and worship the personality of Godhead, who is the protector of the devotees. So these are the activities that one should perform. These are the devotional service, the activities of devotional service. Okay. If realization of the absolute truth is the ultimate aim of life, it must be carried out by all means. Okay. And these means are, and any one of the above mentioned caste and orders of life, the four processes, namely glorifying, hearing, remembering and worshipping, are general occupation. Okay. So this mundane glorification by propaganda, Srila Prabhupada speaks about how this glorification is an inherent nature of all of us. Okay, we have this tendency to glorify. We have the tendency to remember one thing or the other. Right? We cannot say our mind is blank or mind is empty. That will never happen. We always have this tendency to remember something, to speak about something, okay, to hear about something, and to glorify and worship. Okay. So this tendency should be dovetailed for remembering Krishna, hearing about Krishna, reciting his glories like this. Okay. So he says, through newspaper propaganda, an insignificant man can also become an important man. Okay. Because this inherent tendency of a human being is to glorify somebody, and if they do not know that Krishna is to be glorified, they'll glorify everybody else. Probably glorifying the politicians, glorifying the cricket team, some musicians, some Bollywood actor, so many things. Because the tendency to glorify is always there. Okay. But the true object of glorification is Krishna. The actual object of glorification is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has created everything manifested before us. So why is He the actual object of glorification? Because He is the one who has created everything, which is manifested before us. And whatever is manifested before us is amazing. The whole creation is amazing. So one who has done that, he is the actual object of our glorification. Okay. Then he says that Yad anudhyasina yukta karma granthi nibandhanam chindanti ko vidastasya ko na kuryat katharatim. With sword in hand, intelligent men cut through the binding knots of reactionary work, karma, by remembering the personality of Godhead. Therefore, who will not pay attention to his message? Okay. Now, till this point, as we discussed, we are discussing about dharma, and dharma is supposed to lead you to, even from the mundane point of view, dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. And when we speak about moksha means this knots of fruitive activities. The fruitive activities should basically become equal to zero. You do not have any karmic reactions. If you have karmic reactions, you have to take birth again. Correct? So, with sword in hand, intelligent men, Kovidaha, they cut through the binding knots of reactionary work by just remembering the personality of God. Just by remembrance of Krishna, all the material actions and reactions are destroyed. Okay, how amazing. Therefore, who will not pay attention to his message? So, who is there who will not pay attention to his message? We are speaking about intelligent men, and those who are intelligent, they must pay attention to this message. Srila Prabhupada speaks about liberation. He says, this liberation automatically follows for one who constantly remembers the transcendental pastimes of the personality of Godhead. This is because all the activities of the Supreme Lord are transcendental to the modes of material energy. So if you constantly hear, glorify, remember, and what do you do? And then worship those things which are related to the three modes of material nature, we will remain here. Okay, we'll remain here, we'll not go anywhere else. So our propensity to hear, to chant, to glorify, to remember, to worship should be devoted to Krishna, or should be done for Krishna. And if we do that, because He is beyond the three modes, our activities also are beyond the three modes. And when we get purified, we will also go beyond the three modes. This is a simple way to understand this. So only devotional service can lead to liberation. Okay. Now, devotional service means that we are rendering devotional service to Bhagavan. We are doing bhakti to Bhagavan. And only devotional service can lead to liberation. Okay, let us see. Attainment of spiritual knowledge is not sufficient to ensure liberation. Right? Just jnana. This Mayavadis will say, jnana is enough to get liberated. If you can know, if you realize yourself through this jnana process, then you are liberated. Like this. So for them, transcendental knowledge is what they need to attain liberation. But Prabhupada says clearly that no, it's not sufficient. This knowledge must be overcoated with devotional service, so that ultimately the devotional service alone predominates. Then liberation is made possible. So liberation is made possible by devotional service. Liberation is not possible. So even those who want to attain to Brahman, they also should render some devotional service. Or else they cannot go to merge, or even they will not merge anyways, but they cannot attain Brahma Jyoti even without rendering devotional service. It is not possible. Okay. Karma overcoated devotional service is called Karma Yoga. Similarly, empirical knowledge overcoated with devotional service is called Jnana Yoga. But pure Bhakti Yoga is independent of such karma and jnana. So, what is the sword? The sword to cut the knots of Reactionary work is constantly remember the personality of Godhead by hearing about Him, by glorifying Him, by remembering Him, and by worshipping Him always without cessation. Okay, so this is the perfect way. And the Goswamis of Vrindavan, who were authorized by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to preach the Bhakti cult, strictly followed this rule and made immense literatures for our benefit. From 16th verse onwards to 21, basically we are going to see the stages in devotion service. Okay. So in the first verse, the 16th verse, now after asking a rhetorical question of who will not be attracted, so the Goswami speaks about how to gain attraction for the messages of the Lord. Okay. There might be someone who is not attracted. How can he gain attraction? Shushusho Shraddhadhanasya Vasudeva Katha Ruchihi Syan Mahat Sevaya Vipra Punya Tirtha Nishevana. O twice born sages, by serving those devotees who are completely freed from all vice, great service is done. By such service, one gains affinity for hearing the messages of Vasudeva. So, Mahat Sevaya, only by rendering devotional service or only by rendering service to these devotees who are freed, completely freed from all vice. Vice means sinful activities. Great service is done, and only by such service, by Mahat Sevaya, only is it possible to gain affinity for hearing the messages of Vasudeva. Without rendering service to pure devotees, it is not possible. Okay. Srila Prabhupada, he gives the he starts from the very basic and he gives a distinction between Devas and Asuras. Okay. So Devas are those who follow the authority of the Supreme Lord, and Asuras are those who are against the authority of the Supreme Lord. Okay. And Asuras, in 16th chapter, Krishna says that these Asuras are put into lower and lower states of ignorance, life after life, and so sink to the lower animal forms and have no information of the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead. So then we might think, okay, now how is it possible for these living entities to come up? How is it possible for them to come up? It's possible by the mercy of the Lord's liberated servitors. When they come in association with the pure devotee and render service to them, then it is possible for even the most degraded living entity or the most abominable living entity to elevate himself and come to the platform of rendering devotional service. So that's why association of pure devotees, service to pure devotees is, that is the key, or you can say, that's the trick for everybody. And we know, Srila Prabhupada, when he went to America, what good fortune did they have? It's only by the presence of Srila Prabhupada that they were reformed from all their abominable activities and they could attain the love to devotional service. Okay. So these devotees, they are known as empowered incarnations of the Lord because they come as sons of the Lord, as servants of the Lord, or as associates of the Lord. And then they engage in preaching activities by purifying and thus help in purifying the fallen asuras. Okay. But now Prabhupada also makes one more point that these empowered incarnations, they don't claim themselves to be God. Okay, so that is there. Only the asuras, they claim that a person is God or he's an incarnation of God. But no one should be accepted as an incarnation unless and until he is confirmed by revealed scriptures. Okay. So it's kind of a side point with respect to the flow, but still Srila Prabhupada makes this point because it's a very important point. Okay. Because when we say, these devotees are so special that they are non-different from Krishna himself. It's Krishna himself says. Okay. It is in 11th canto, correct? Okay, in 11th canto actually Krishna says that the devotees, Acharya Mam Vijaniya Naham Maniya Kariche, right? The Acharya is non-different from me. The pure devotees are non-different from me. So it does not mean that they become the Supreme Lord. They attain the position of Vishnu Tattva. No. There are some people who claim, who take the position of an Acharya, who take the position of Guru, and people follow them and they claim themselves to be God himself or incarnation of God, but it's just nonsense. They are just asuras. So servants of the God are called Mahatmas or Tirthas, and they preach according to particular time and place. Right? They are Punya Tirthas. They are Tirthas. They are like holy places. walking holy places. And then again, Srila Prabhupada speaks about how the servants of God urge people to become devotees of the Lord. They never tolerate being called God. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was Krishna himself, but whenever people used to call him as Krishna, then he used to close his eyes, close his ears, and used to chant the names of Vishnu, just to set an example that unless and until one is because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came as a devotee, not as the Supreme Lord, even though he is the Supreme Lord. The Lord behaves so as to warn us against unscrupulous men who take pleasure in being addressed as God. Okay, so serving the servant of God. By serving the servant of God, one can please God more than by directly serving the Lord. Okay, that is also very important. Devotional service or service to Krishna's devotees is more potent in purifying us, in taking us to the level of pure devotee than by directly serving the Lord, because Krishna himself has said this process. The Lord is more pleased when he sees that his servants are properly respected, because such servants risk everything for the service of the Lord and so are very dear to the Lord. By serving the servants of the Lord, one gradually gets the quality of such servants and thus becomes qualified to hear the glories of God. Okay, so by this service, what actually happens is, they gain or they attain the quality of those devotees. Okay, just by the association. They get, just by serving them, they gain the qualities of those pure devotees. And thus one becomes qualified to hear the glories of Lord. So this is actually the process. By Mahat Seva, the qualities of those devotees, they are acquired by those who are rendering service to them. And with that, the affinity to hear about the Lord, it increases. They become qualified for that. Okay. The next is Shrinvatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanaha Hridayantasto Yabadrani Vidhunoti Suhrit Satam. Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Okay, so we can see, Krishna himself, he takes the activity or he takes the work of cleansing the desire of material enjoyment for those who have developed the urge to hear his messages. Okay, so by reference, by the sequence, we can understand that one develops the urge to hear his messages by rendering service to the pure devotees. Okay, and Krishna is so pleased when a person renders service to his pure devotees that he himself comes and purifies the heart of those people and cleanses the desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee. Okay, so this is the sequence. First is rendering service. We will see, and we see from 16 to 21 onwards. Sorry, from 16 to 20, it's in line with what Sri Rupa Goswami mentions in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Adav Shraddha Tatha Sadhu Sangha. So we'll see these verses till 20, and then we'll see how it relates to each of the stages of this. Okay. Holy name is as powerful as Krishna personally. Okay, so this is one thing we should be completely convinced about. Okay, the holy name is powerful, is non-different from Krishna, and each and every time, each and every moment, whenever we are chanting Krishna's name, this should be there in our mind, that when we are chanting Krishna's name, is non-different from his name. Krishna is actually present along with his name, form, qualities, pastimes. When we say Krishna is non-different from his name, it means everything. Everything, his name, form, qualities, pastimes. Name is anyway there. Forms, qualities, pastimes, all these are revealed just by chanting the holy names. Because the chanting of the holy name is non-different from Krishna himself. So this is one thing which we should always have. It's one thing that we should always understand. Or we should never forget this. That's the principle. This is one thing we should never forget. Each and every moment, we should always know that Krishna's name is non-different from him, from Krishna personally, and we should always chant his name. Satatam Kirtayantam. Lord Krishna is present there in the form of transcendental sound. Okay. And then Prabhupada writes about the glories of the holy name. He says there is no rigid fixture of time, and anyone can chant the holy name with attention and reverence at his convenience. Right? When we say that during performing Varnashrama activities, one should hear and glorify, one just has to chant Hare Krishna. That's all. You don't have to do anything special. Whatever activities you are performing, just chant. No? You make it habitual that Mahamantra is always going at the back of the mind. You don't have to do anything special. That itself will purify everything. Okay. So we have already discussed developing a taste for hearing and chanting the holy sound. It is done through the medium of service to the pure devotee of the Lord. So this affinity to even chant, this hearing, chanting, also happens through the service of devotees. So therefore, service is extremely important. So only by rendering devotional service, only by rendering service to pure devotees, everything that is conducive for devotional service, it automatically happens. That automatically arises in the heart that we want to render devotional service like this. So then Krishna helps. Hridayantastho Yabhadrani. So then the Lord reciprocally responds to his devotees. He sees that the devotee is completely sincere in getting admittance to the transcendental service of the Lord and has thus become eager to hear about him. So this is also very important. Completely sincere. So one should be sincere. Okay, sincerity should be there. Sincerity of purpose should be there. Lord Krishna, or the Lord, is more anxious to take us back into his kingdom than we can desire. Okay, Krishna is more anxious, Srila Prabhupada says. Most of us do not desire at all to go back to Godhead. Only a few men want to go back to Godhead. But anyone who desires to go back to Godhead, Sri Krishna helps in all respects. So this is a very important principle of having Shraddha. Okay, when we say we should have faith on the Lord, this Rakshyati iti Vishwaso, that he will protect us, he will protect our devotional service. What we have to do is we have to be sincere. We have to be sincere, we have to endeavor for rendering pure devotional service. And Krishna will help. Because this 6 angas of surrender is there, What is that? Anukulyana Krishna, what is that? Anukusya sankalpyam, pratikulasya varjanam, rakshyati iti vishvaso, gopritya varnam tatha, shepakaarpanya, shadvidha sharanagati. Okay. So, surrendering or to have faith on the Lord. Faith means basically surrender. To have faith on the Lord also means that he will be helping us in all respects, that he will protect us in all respects. One cannot enter into the kingdom of God unless one is perfectly cleared of all sins. Right? Women and wealth are very difficult problems for the devotee making progress on the path back to Godhead. But when one is helped by the Lord himself, the whole process becomes as easy as anything. Okay, so Lord will help. But to gain the attention of the Lord, what we have to do is Mahad Seva, to serve the devotees. Okay. And hearing glories of Krishna leads to, or it gives sufficient strength to defend ourselves from all kinds of disturbances, and gradually all disturbing elements are eliminated from the mind. These disturbing elements are our Trishna, our attraction to material enjoyment. Okay. So these are like the enemies or the demons, the Rakshasas, who will always come and trouble us. So these disturbing elements are automatically eliminated from the mind, because Krishna gives the strength to overcome all kinds of material allurements just by hearing, if you hear his glories. And what happens? Nashta prayeshva bhadreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavatyuttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as irrevocable fact. It's nishtha. It's actually the state of nishtha, where you are fixed in devotional service. Because by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, who is not different from Krishna. Okay. So when we say render devotional service to Krishna, basically means that rendering devotional service to Bhagavatam also. Just by hearing Bhagavatam, when we say hearing and chanting, Shravanam, Shinvatam Svakatha Krishna, Punya Shravana Kirtana, this Shravana and Kirtana also. Shravana is hearing Bhagavatam, Kirtana is speaking Bhagavatam. Okay. And by rendering service, Mahatseva to the pure devotee, what happens? All that is troublesome to the heart is completely destroyed. Okay. Almost completely destroyed. Okay. And just even though Prabhupada in one of his lectures, he says that even if it's 75% destroyed, that also will lead you to Nishtha stage. Okay. You'll be fixed in devotion service. You'll never get deviated. Almost. Prayeshu explains. Nashta prayeshu bhadreshu. Just prayeshu. Okay. 75%. Prabhupada gives this number also. 75% if you are fixed. This impurities in the heart are removed, then we are fixed. Then loving service onto the personality of Godhead is established as an irrevocable fact. Even if 75% is removed, then also this taste, service, this desire to render devotional service to the Lord is established as an irrevocable fact, as Nishtha, Naishtiki. Prabhupada writes about Book Bhagavat and the devotee Bhagavat. Okay, he says Bhagavatas are competent remedies, both the devotee Bhagavat as well as the book Bhagavat. Right? This is what we see, no? Regular attendance in the class of Bhagavatam and rendering service to the pure devotee. Book Bhagavata and the devotee Bhagavata. Both the Bhagavatas are competent remedies, and both of them are, or either of them can be good enough to eliminate the obstacles. Okay, so therefore the devotee Bhagavata, Bhagavat Sevya, devotee Bhagavata is a direct representative of Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. So by pleasing the devotee Bhagavata, one can receive the benefit of the book Bhagavata. Okay. So by such sincere association of the Bhagavatas, one is sure to receive transcendental knowledge very easily, with the result that he becomes fixed in devotional service of the Lord. So this is an hint, right? To attain to Nishtha, to have become fixed in devotional service, association of the Bhagavatas is required, which leads to transcendental knowledge. And when one is fixed in transcendental knowledge, then he becomes fixed in devotional service of the Lord. Okay. The messages of the book Bhagavata, therefore, have to be received from the devotee Bhagavata, and the combination of these two Bhagavatas will help the neophyte devotee to make progress on and on. The progress will keep on continuing with these two. Service to devotees, okay, listening from him, and studying Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay. Then what happens? If this, Nashta Prayasha Bhagavati Tumshlaki Bhakti Bhavati Naishtaki, when this happens, then Tadarajastamo Bhava Kamalo Bhadayaschaye Cheta Eterana Vidhim Sthitam Sattve Prasidati. As soon as irrevocable loving service is established in the heart, the effects of nature's modes and of passion and ignorance, such as lust, desire and hankering, disappear from the heart. Then the devotee is established in goodness and he becomes completely happy. Okay. So what happens is, as soon as Nishtha is attained, then the effects of Raja and Tamoguna automatically disappear. So the further 25% which was pending, that also goes away. Okay. Such as lust, desire and hankering. What is it? Kama Lobha Dayash. So Kama Lobha and Adi. There are so many kinds of nonsensical things which is there within our heart. All of them disappear from the heart. And then the devotee is established in goodness. Sthitam Statve Prasidati. And what happens? Prasidati. He becomes completely happy. Right? So now connecting this to the first question. What is the ultimate happiness? Or what is the ultimate good? And then second question was that which gives ultimate happiness. This, what is that? Yayatma su prasidati. So the prasidati happens here. So basically, Suta Goswami is giving an answer. So when we say the answer to the first two questions, 6 and 7, these verses are basically an explanation of the 6th and 7th verse. Okay. And he says, okay, if you do these things, okay, I said bhakti will give happiness. How does it give happiness? These are the stages of devotional service. If one follows these stages of devotional service, the things which have been mentioned in these verses, then he attains prasidati. He becomes happy. Okay. So in one way you can say that all these verses are an answer to the second question. Right? The essence of all scriptures which pleases the heart. Okay. But in just it's 6th and 7th, and then other verses are explanation of the 6th and 7th. Okay.
So far we are discussing about the second answer. Not all.
Yes. See, we have discussed only 2 answers till now of the 6 questions. So Sutta Goswami is basically explaining this answer. He said bhakti, okay, in 6th and 7th verse, and now he elaborates on the process of devotional service. So this is what we are seeing. And finally, when all these things happen on different stages of bhakti, of devotional service, we have traversed all the stages of devotional service. Then, sthitam sattve prasidati. Then satisfaction of heart also arises. Okay. So we'll do this 20th question also, 20th verse also. Then we'll take a break. Okay. Evam prasanna manaso bhagavad bhakti yogatah bhagavad tattva vijnanam mukta sangasya jayate. Thus, established in the mode of unalloyed goodness, the man whose mind has been enlivened by contact with devotional service to the Lord gains positive scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead in the stage of liberation from all material association. So this is your Bhagavad Tattva Vijnanam. Okay, so we describe what is the absolute truth. So one realizes that absolute truth by devotional service. So it's like this, within this whole section where we are answering the second question, within that we have also defined what is the absolute truth, and within that same section we have also defined how to attain that absolute truth. So it's like this, it's like, it's boxes within the boxes where small sections are there, and we are understanding different concepts also. At one section there's a focus on devotional service, bhakti, and then when we are speaking about tattva, when we are speaking about this absolute truth, then that is also attained by devotional service only. Okay, so this like this. It's like a box within a box. So when one is established in mode of unalloyed goodness, then the mind is enlivened by contact with devotional service. Then he gains positive scientific knowledge, Bhagavad Tattva Vijnanam, and then he attains liberation. Then the liberation becomes authentic. The liberation becomes perfect. Okay. So this is the process of liberation, of getting free. So Srila Prabhupada speaks about rarity in attaining Bhagavad Tattva Vijnanam. It says, Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschit yati siddhaye yatatam api siddhanam kaschin mameti tatpataha. So out of many thousands of ordinary men, only one fortunate man endeavors for perfection in life. And out of many, only few attain it. And mostly men are conducted by modes of passion and ignorance. So therefore they are always engaged in lust, desire, hankerings, ignorance and sleep. And out of many man-like animals, so those who are engaged in these things are just like animals. Okay, there is one man who then knows the responsibility of human life and thus tries to make life perfect by following the prescribed duties. Okay, and then out of many thousands of such persons who have thus attained success in human life, one may know scientifically about the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna. Okay. So Saptaguna is not enough to know Bhagavad Tattva Vijnanam. Okay. Because Saptaguna is also material. Srila Prabhupada says, a Brahmana is the symbol of Saptaguna or the mode of goodness. And others who are not in the mode of goodness are either Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras or less than Shudras. The Brahminical stage is the highest stage of human life because of its good qualities. Sattva-guna gives good qualities. So one cannot be a devotee unless one at least qualifies as a Brahmana. The devotee is already a Brahmana by action, but that is not the end of it. So because one has to go beyond the stage of Brahmana. You should go to the stage of Vasudeva Sattva. I think that will come. It's there. Okay. Only Vaishnavas can know Bhagavad Tattva Vijnanam. In the material stage, even a Brahmana is also a conditioned soul, because although in the Brahminical stage, the concept of Brahman or transcendence is realized, scientific knowledge of the Supreme Lord is lacking. Okay, when we speak about scientific knowledge about the Supreme Lord, we are speaking about all the three aspects. Not only Brahma Janati Iti Brahmana, we are also speaking about Paramatma and Bhagavan. Okay. One has to surpass the Brahminical stage and reach the Vasudeva stage to understand the personality of Godhead Krishna. So we'll discuss more about the Vasudeva stage when that comes. It will come later in this course. Vasudeva stage is Shuddha Sattva. Okay. One cannot understand the science of the personality of Godhead unless one is freed from the contamination of the material modes, even up to the stage of a Brahmana. So Sattva-guna will lead, it's conducive for knowledge. Sattvam Sandhyayate Jnanam. Okay. But one cannot remain in Sattva Guna and also gain realization about the absolute truth. As the knowledge is gained, then he should transform himself from Sattva to Shuddha Sattva state also. Then only realization is possible. Okay. Yeah, so this ends one section. Total 21. Yeah, okay. Bhityate hridaya granthischidhyante sarva samshayaha kshiyante chasya karmani drishta evatmanishvare. Thus the knot in the heart is pierced. All the misgivings are cut to pieces. The chain of fruitive actions is terminated when one sees one's self and one's master. So this is the conclusion of the verses which we have seen till now. Because what happens? The knot in the heart is pierced. This knot is basically the misidentification with the material body. The living entity is misidentification with the material body. It's a hridaya granthi. It's a very tight knot, the false ego. So that is pierced, and all misgivings are cut to pieces. All kinds of doubts are removed. Okay, and the chain of fruitive reactions is also terminated. And then one sees oneself as, or rather, he is able to realize himself as well as the Supreme Lord. Okay, so self-realization accompanies scientific knowledge of Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when one realizes the Absolute Truth, he also realizes himself. Because the living entity is also part of the Absolute Truth. So if he realizes the Absolute Truth, then he realizes himself also. Okay. As soon as Krishna, Sun, is arisen within one's heart, the darkness of materialistic speculations about the Absolute Truth and the living beings is at once cleared off. Okay. In the presence of the Sun, the darkness cannot stand, and the later truths that were hidden within the dense darkness of ignorance become clearly manifested by the mercy of Krishna, who is residing in everyone's heart as the Super Soul. And a devotee is not in darkness, because the Lord says that in order to show special favor to his pure devotee, he personally eradicates the dense darkness of all misgivings by switching on the light of pure knowledge. Right? Jnana Deepena Bhasvata. He comes to know everything, or rather the devotee, he comes to know everything of the absolute as well as the relative truths. Means he has full knowledge about the material realm as well as the spiritual realm. Oh, such a big purport. Okay. One thing is, perfect knowledge is called parampara. Perfect knowledge means disciplic succession. Perfect knowledge means parampara. And any knowledge which is gained, which is not in parampara, it is not perfect knowledge. Okay. So, a very important point. One cannot challenge the authority of the Supreme and know him also at the same time. Right? One cannot have a challenging attitude. He reserves the right of not being exposed to such a challenging spirit of an insignificant spark of the whole, a spark subjected to the control of the illusory energy. That avajananti ma mudha manashintan mashitam param bhavam ajanantu mama vyaram anuttamam. Some more verse also. What is that? Naham prakasha sarvasya yoga maya samartha mudhoyam na vijanati lokoma vajamaya. And what is the result of perfect knowledge? Distinguish spirit from matter. Okay. Perfect knowledge means distinguishing between spirit and matter. What is Sat and what is Asat. Okay. And it's very important. A devotee must know to distinguish between what is Sat and what is Asat. Only when he can do that, then he'll be able to fix himself in proper devotional service. Okay. The knot of spirit and matter is untied by the Lord, and this knot is called Ahankara. And it falsely obliges the living being to become identified with the matter. One sees his master and fully engages himself in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, making a full termination of the chain of fruitive action. Okay, so devotional service will terminate the chain of fruitive action also. In the Nectar of Devotion, there are 6 things that happen when a person starts rendering devotional service. Seshagni and Shurvada Sandrananda Visheshatma Krishna. So one of them is also this termination of sinful reactions, right? Kleshagni, right? So one renders devotional service, then this Kleshagni, it goes away. Verse 22 is Sutta Goswami. Now he says that this process is not No, it's not a frustrating process, or it's not a difficult process. This process of devotional service is performed with great delight, and it is enlivening to the self. No, Atma Prasadani. Okay, again, this that which enlivens, that which is happiness. So the same point. Okay. Ato vai kavayo nityam bhaktim paramaya muda vasudeve bhagavati kurvantyatma prasadani. Certainly, therefore, since time immemorial, all transcendentalists have been rendering devotional service to Lord Krishna, okay, the personality of Godhead, with great delight, because such devotional service is enlivening to the self. Okay. Srila says a short purport. Yeah. The speciality of devotional service is mentioned here. Okay. It says Lord Krishna is the Swayam Rupa personality of Godhead. And all other forms of Godhead, beginning from Sri Baladev, Shankarshan, Vasudev, Aniruddha, Pradyumna, and Narayana, and extending to the Purusha avatars, Guna avatars, Leela avatars, Yoga avatars, many other thousands of manifestations of the personality of Godhead are Lord Sri Krishna's plenary portions and integrated parts. Okay. In forms of the personality of Godhead other than Sri Krishna and Balaram, there is no facility for intimate personal contact. But when it comes to Krishna and Balaram, there is.
This point comes in Kunti as well.
Yes. Okay. So because Lord Krishna is Swayam Rupa, he is Akhila Rasamrita Murti. He is the fountainhead, Srila Prabhupada says, he is the fountainhead of all incarnations. So by rendering devotional service unto him, all kinds of rasa can be experienced, and when one experiences rasa, then it's automatically enlivening to the self. Okay, so devotional service to Krishna, it has the topmost taste. It is the highest taste. Okay, forget about material thing. Obviously, it is Nirananda. There is no taste here. But even devotional service to the other forms of the Lord, Krishna's devotional service to Krishna surpasses even that. Okay, so the highest position, highest rasa can be gained through rendering devotional service to the Krishna. Okay, especially that because he is Swayam Rupa. He is the origin, fountainhead of all the personalities of Godhead. Okay. Okay, so with this, before that, I'll go back. So, okay, from 16 to 17, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in his commentary, from 16 to 20, he tells basically there are 14 stages. These 14 stages are basically an elaboration on the 8 stages which Srila Rupa Goswami gives in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Okay, so here this Ado Shraddha, Tatha Sadhu Sangha, Atha Bhajana Kriya. There are 3 stages, no? So Shushusho Shraddha Dhanasya. So Shraddha comes here. Okay. Sadhu Sangha is your Mahat Seva. Bhajana Kriya is Punya Tirtha. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his commentary says Punya Tirtha also means the spiritual master. Okay. The Guru. And by rendering service to the Guru, then one gets into this Bhajana Kriya, right? Bhajana Kriya is what? Initiation. Right? Ado Shraddha, first one has faith, then he associates with devotees.
Mahat Seva will not be commander gurus.
Yeah. Mahat Seva can be, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur specifically speaks Punya Tirtha. Okay. Yeah, Mahat Seva can also be under of serving the Guru. It's also possible. Okay. And Atha Bhajana Kriya. So Bhajana Kriya is when a person becomes convinced that this is the process and he takes initiation. That's when his Bhajana Kriya starts. Then Tato Anartha Nivritti Syat. Okay, this Anartha Nivritti, basically Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says it's in the 18th verse, Nashta Prayasha Bhadreshu. But we can also see that in 17th verse also it says Hridyanthastho Hyabhadrani. All the abhadras, all the inauspicious things are removed. So these two, Anartha Nivritti, can be referring to both these verses. Then, when Anartha Nivritti happens, then Nishtha. Bhakti is established. Nashta Prayashu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavad Sevya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Nishtha stage is this verse. Then when Nishtha is there, then all Raja and Tamo type of activities, that are inclinations, they go away. And Cheta Eter Anavidhim. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he compares that to Ruchi. Okay, that Cheta Eter Anavidhim. Let's see how it's translated. Okay. The mind is without being affected from this kama, lobha, without the influence of Raja and Tama, then a taste arises. Ruchi is there because the inferior taste is gone because kama, lobha, adi is not there, and Raja guna and Tamoguna influence is also not there. So inferior taste is gone. So superior taste has arisen, and that he relates to ruchi and athasakti, asakti. Okay, to this process, attachment, firm attachment is happening when he situates himself in sattva. Okay, and he's enlivened by that asakti, prasidati. Okay. Then tato bhavas tatha prema abhijati. Bhava and prema. So Vishwanath Chakravarti says this prasanna manaso. When one is enlivened within the heart, that is the stage of bhava. Okay. So there is no other thought. He is completely fixed and is completely enlivened in the stage of bhava. Okay. The last stage, prema abhijati. He compares with this Bhagavad Bhakti Yogataha. Okay. Devotional service itself is the highest level, and this Bhagavad Bhakti basically gives direct experience of Lord Hari. So this Hare, when he says Hare Madhuryanubhava, this he relates to Bhagavad Bhakti. Just by doing devotional service, one can attain the topmost transcendental taste. He can experience the sweetness of Lord Hari. Okay. So, see, Srila Rupa Goswami did not comment on these verses of Bhagavatam. Okay. So what we have done here, what I have done here is, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives these 14 steps. Okay. And from these steps, these are related to the 8 stages which Rupa Goswami gives. Okay. So this is a comparison which has been made. Okay. But don't take it that Rupa Goswami has commented on these verses. Okay. This is not taken in that way. Is that clear? Okay. So that is why I categorized it as the stages in devotional service, because Adav Shraddha to Tatha Prema Abhijantini, it's like the sequence. Okay. 23rd. Sattvam Rajastama iti Prakriter Gunaiste Yukta Parapurusha Eka Ihasya Dhatte Sthitadve Harivirinchi Hareti Samnyaha Shreyamsi Tatra Khalu Satmatanor Nranam Syu. The transcendental personality of Godhead is indirectly associated with the 3 modes of material nature, namely passion, goodness and ignorance. And just for the material world's creation, maintenance and destruction, he accepts the 3 qualitative forms of Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva. Of these 3, all human beings can derive ultimate benefit from Vishnu, the form of the quality of goodness. Okay. See now, last class we discussed that Suta Goswami is the one who is reciting all the Puranas, correct, to the Shaunakadi Rishis. Now, if a question comes, or if there is some doubt about the position of Lord Vishnu or Krishna, then these verses will basically clear that even though so many worship of different demigods have been discussed, a completely different presentation has been made here, where we are saying devotional service only to Krishna, nobody else. So what is the position of the other demigods? Okay, and what is the position of Lord Vishnu with respect to them? And how he is transcendental to the 3 modes of material nature. So from this point onwards, we will see that this aspect of how Lord Vishnu is beyond the 3 modes is mentioned in verses that come from here. Okay, so Srila Prabhupada writes that from Sri Krishna, the text manifestation is Baladeva. From Baladeva is Shankarshan. From Shankarshan is Narayana. Narayana is second Sankarsana. And from this Shankarsana, the Vishnu Purushavasaras come. The Vishnu, or the deity of the quality of goodness in the material world, is the Purushavatara known as Kshirodakshaya Vishnu or Paramatma. Brahma is the deity of Rajas, passion, and Shiva of ignorance. The materialist and the foolish human beings worship Brahma and Shiva respectively, but the pure transcendentalists worship the form of goodness, Vishnu, in his various forms. Okay. When Vishnu, the personality of Godhead, appears in the material world, he comes to deliver the conditioned living beings who are under the material energy. So only one who is transcendental to the modes can deliver someone from the modes. Okay, if someone is already influenced by the modes, he cannot deliver the other person, or he cannot liberate the other person. It's not possible. Okay. So Lord Vishnu is beyond the three modes. Now one doubt might come up. Okay, it says
Qualitative
qualitative
form of the quality of goodness.
Form of the quality of goodness. Yes, it says Sattva Tanor Nranam Sihu. Okay. Now, so Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he comments on that specifically. He says that Sattva Tanor, referring to Lord Vishnu, doesn't mean his form is made up of Sattva Guna. Vishnu is always in Vishuddha Sattva, which is established in verse 25. Bhagavantam Adhokshajam Sattvam Vishuddham. Okay. Lord Vishnu is never. You have to reconcile. When something like this comes up, we will see in the Shastra that it has to be reconciled with the other statements. When all other statements are speaking about the transcendental position of Lord Vishnu, then Sattva Tana. Sattva here means Shuddha Sattva. Vishuddha Sattva. Okay. Okay, so this about Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, we'll not be able to see in detail of how the Lord is indirectly associated with three modes and other things, but this will come. This will come in Bhagavatam at several places, so we'll get into some detail, as much as we can understand. Okay. Because we'll not be able to understand this completely, being so limited, but whatever we could understand, we'll discuss about that. Okay, 24th verse. Parthiva darno dhumas tasmad agnistrayimayah tamasastu rajas tasmad sattvam yad brahma darshanam. Firewood is a transformation of earth, but smoke is better than the raw wood. And fire is still better, for by fire we can derive the benefits of superior knowledge through Vedic sacrifices. Similarly, passion, rajas, is better than ignorance, tamas, but goodness, sattva, is best, because by goodness one can come to realize the absolute truth. So in those Puranas where Sutta Goswami has spoken about Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma and other Rajoguna and Tamoguna kind of worship, you cannot gain ultimate benefit from them. But what I am speaking now, like Sutta Goswami, what I am speaking now, this is transcendental. And ultimate benefit can be gained only from worship of Vishnu. So again, now this ties back to the first question. What is the ultimate benefit, ultimate good for people? It's possible only through Lord Vishnu. Lord Krishna. Okay. In the mode of goodness, one attains eligibility for devotional service. So this one point which Srila Prabhupada makes. He says, one has to rise to the platform of the mode of goodness, sattva, so that one can be eligible for the devotional service of the Lord. But if there are impediments on the progressive path, anyone, even from the platform of tamas, can gradually rise to the sattva platform by the expert direction of the spiritual master. Okay, if you have a spiritual master and you're okay, or you are fully convinced to follow his instructions, does not matter in which stage he is, he can be brought up to pure devotional service. An example, Srila Prabhupada is example for all these things. He brought up people who he cannot categorize even as Shudras, they are even the lowest. So he brought them up just because they had the qualification of listening, of hearing to Srila Prabhupada. They had the qualification of listening to his instructions and implementing it in their lives. Just by that, we see so many devotees, they have risen to the level of pure devotional service. Okay, and this is an important point he makes. Srila Prabhupada says, it's a mistake, therefore, to consider that worship of any quality or any form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is equally beneficial. Except Vishnu, all forms are separated, being manifested under the conditions of material energy. And therefore, these forms of material energy cannot help anyone rise to the platform of sattva, which alone can liberate a person from material bondage. Okay, so this is an answer to those people who speak about Lord Shiva's worship. Why Lord Shiva is worship? The recommendation is there in Puranas also. Why do you concentrate only on Krishna, 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 Vishnu like this? Why Vaishnava's position is supreme? It's because the forms of the material energy, like Lord Brahma and Lord Vishnu, Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, cannot help anyone rise to the platform of Sattva. And only in Sattva there is a scope of attaining this Jnana and Vairagya. You cannot find a Rajoguna person a Vairagi. No, it does not make any sense. Right? A Tamoguna person, he might be Vairagi, but he has no knowledge. It's totally in Tamoguna. So Sattva, it leads to Jnana and Vairagya. And devotional service, devotional leads to Jnana and Vairagya, but one should be in Sattva Guna to be conducive, to make his environment conducive for devotional service. Other forms cannot help apart from Sattva to gain the transcendental platform. So Sattva Guna helps realize the absolute truth. The Rajas stage of life gives a slight clue to the realization of the absolute truth in the form of fine sentiments in philosophy, art and culture with moral and ethical principles. But the mode of Sattva is a still higher stage of material quality which actually helps one in realizing the absolute truth. Then Bhejire munayotagre bhagavantam adhokshajam sattvam vishuddham kshemaya kalpante yenutaniha. Previously, all the great sages rendered service unto the personality of Godhead due to his existence above the three modes of material nature. Right? This is what Vishnu Chavir Thakur says. Sattam Vishuddham. Right? So Lord Vishnu is beyond the three modes. They worshipped him to become free from material conditions and thus derive the ultimate benefit. Whoever follows such great authorities is also eligible for liberation from the material world. So this theme we have been discussing. So one who wants to get liberation from the material conditions should follow such great authorities who themselves have rendered service to the personality of Godhead, who is beyond the three modes of material nature. The purpose of performing religion is neither to profit by material gain, karma, nor to get simple knowledge of discerning matter from spirit, jnana. The ultimate aim of religious performances is to realize oneself from material bondage and regain the life of freedom in the transcendental world where the personality of Godhead is the supreme person. So dharma is not meant for artha, or it does not mean when you come to this moksha stage you only follow dharma for gaining jnana. It's actually meant for releasing oneself from material bondage and also to regain the life of freedom in the transcendental world, to go back home, back to Godhead. So persons who desire their own good may follow these Mahajanas and thus attain the supreme benefit. So from 26, so this ends the discussion on the deities or on the personalities of the three modes. And this is also establishing the fact that Lord Vishnu is beyond the three modes. So these three verses. From 26 to 29, we'll see how demigod worship is rejected. 26-27 basically. Mumukshavo ghora rupan hitva bhutapati natha narayana kalah shanta bhajanti hyanasuyavaha. Those who are serious about liberation are certainly non-envious and they respect all. Yet they reject the horrible and ghastly forms of the demigods and worship only the all-blissful forms of Lord Vishnu and his plenary portions. So Srila Prabhupada speaks about two amshas, two expansions of the Lord, Swamsha and Vibhinnamsha. Swamsha is Vishnu Tattva. Vibhinnamshas are the living entities. And worship under the modes. So he says that, Srila Prabhupada says that there are different demigods who are worshipped in the mode of darkness and ignorance. And there are other demigods like Lord Brahma, Surya, Ganesha, who are worshipped by the men who are in the mode of passion. But those who actually worship Lord Vishnu, then, or rather, those who are situated in the mode of goodness, they worship only the Vishnu Tattvas or Lord Vishnu. The qualified Brahmanas worship the Vishnu Tattvas represented by the Shaligram Shila. And some of the higher caste like the Kshatriyas and Vaishyas also generally worship the Vishnu Tattvas. So they worship the Vishnu deities. The deities of Lord Vishnu, worship them. So no demigod worship for those desiring liberation. See, demigods are influenced by the modes. Even though they are higher beings, they are all influenced by the modes. And as we discussed, those who are influenced by the modes cannot give liberation. It is not possible. So by worshipping the demigods, one cannot attain liberation. No, there's no. Some people say that, okay, you worship Krishna and you say there should be no material desire. I also worship the demigods with no material desire. The people say that the demigod worship is only for those who have material desires. Right? Kamaste te hitankyana prapadyante anya devataha. So those who have material desires, they worship the demigods. But I don't have any material desires. I'm just purely attracted to these demigods. So therefore I worship them. But then that worship is also fruitless. Because demigods cannot liberate anybody. That's one point. Another point is that the constitutional position of the living entity is not to worship the demigods. It is to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So even though one may have this inclination of being attached or attracted to one particular demigod, that is also under the influence of the modes, of the three modes. Okay, attraction to Krishna is the only constitutional position. It's not 2, 3 constitutional positions. It's only one way. It's only one thing. Only attraction to Krishna is only possible for the living entity. So one who claims that he is selflessly dedicated to the demigods, he is bewildered by the modes. Okay. The demigods, even up to the stage of Brahma, the supreme of all the demigods, cannot offer liberation to anyone. Okay. So Hiranyakashipu's example is given, but Lord Brahma could not satisfy him. Lord Vishnu and none else is called Muktipad, or the personality of Godhead who can bestow upon us Mukti, liberation. Okay. The demigods are themselves, just speaking about the demigods are themselves unable to get liberation, and what to speak of giving liberation to their devotees. Demigods can award the worshippers some temporary benefit only, and not the ultimate one. Okay. There's so many things which can be discussed, but let's continue. 27. Rajastamah prakritayah samashila bhajanti vai pitrubhuta prajetshadi shriyaishvarya prajetsavaha. Those who are in the modes of passion and ignorance worship those in the same category, such as the forefathers, other living beings, and the demigods in charge of cosmic activities. For such worshippers are urged by desire to be materially benefited with women, wealth, power, and progeny. So these are the people who worship the demigods. Okay. And demigod worship increases the miseries of life. Okay. So that's the fruit. We have been seeing the fruit of rendering devotional service to Krishna, or rendering devotional service to demigods is increasing the miseries of life. Because it keeps you within the material world. It's just like a cycle. You go up, come down, then do the same thing again and again. So we should never desire to increase the depth of material enjoyment. Okay. By Vishnu worship, one can derive benefit in this life as well as in life after death. Because by devotional service, spiritual benefit is there and material benefit is also gained automatically. Okay. So worship of Krishna with faith is perfection of religion. So Srila Prabhupada highlights here, one should work hard and worship the Supreme Lord by the fruits of one's hard labor for existence. And that should be the motto of life. Motto means basically that should be his goal, or that should be his message, or his ideal. One should be careful to execute occupational service with faith in God in the proper way, and that will lead one gradually on the progressive march back to Godhead. Worshipping the multi-demigods for material gain is practically a perversity of religion. Perversity of religion means basically like, it's like a, what to say in English?
Reflection.
You can say reflection, but it's much more harsh than that. Okay, like it's the complete, it's a complete perverse, or it's a complete destruction of religion. Dharma is not meant for demigod worship. Dharma is meant for rendering devotional service to Krishna. So what this is why this Dharma Projita Kaitava, it is so vehemently or so strongly rejected, okay, in Bhagavatam, that anything that is not aiming at pure devotional service, that is just like it's like calling ill names to somebody. It's just like that. So you should not get attracted to any demigod worship. Those kind of things should never happen. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Our constitutional position is to worship Him, to serve Him. That is what we have to do. So the conclusion is Vasudeva Paraveda Vasudeva Paramakha Vasudeva para yoga, Vasudeva para kriya, Vasudeva param jnanam, Vasudeva param tapah, Vasudeva paro dharmo, Vasudeva para gatihi. So this purport is quite big and we will not be able to see this, but it's very simple. Actually, no, it's very straightforward. In the revealed scriptures, the ultimate object of knowledge is Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. The purpose of performing sacrifice is to please Him. Yoga is for realizing Him. All fruitive activities are ultimately rewarded by Him only. He is supreme knowledge, and all severe austerities are performed to know Him. Religion, dharma, is rendering devotional service unto Him. He is the supreme goal of life. So no, it's like this is like it's like an atom bomb on all the other activities mentioned in the Vedic literatures. Because you see, performing of sacrifices, it's one of the most prominent activities which is spread throughout the Shrutis, Smritis, everywhere. But what is the goal of performing the sacrifice? What's the purpose? It's to satisfy the Supreme Lord. Okay. Yoga processes are mentioned for the Supreme Lord. Fruitive activities are mentioned. So much. Karma kanda, jnana kanda, upasana kanda, everything. Whatever is there in the scriptures, it's only for the Supreme Lord, and all the results of all these activities are ultimately rewarded by Him only. Supreme knowledge is He Himself. Okay. And all austerities, all tapasya that is being done, that also is to know Him. Finally, conclusion, religion, dharma is rendering devotional service, loving service unto Him. He should be the supreme goal of life. He is the supreme goal of life. Okay, so yeah, we'll not be able to go through this purport. It's actually easy, all these things are explained in detail by Srila Prabhupada. So, yeah. Now, from 30 to 34, okay, from 30 to 33 is your Purushavatas. Okay. So now I'll pause at this moment. See, we have another 14 minutes. Okay. Now either we can do this in the next session along with the third chapter, because the first 4 verses of third chapter also deals with Purushavatas. Okay. And if you have any questions, we can take those questions. Or if you don't have any questions, then I can do this now. So you tell me what do you want to do.
Questions.
You have questions? Okay. Okay, yes.
So one thing what we mentioned is that these followers of Brahman realization, or those who want to attain Brahman, they also do some sort of devotional service. But devotional service means doing something. But when they don't meditate on the form, but what kind of devotional service they do?
They do deity worship. They do deity worship.
But Jnanis also, they attain Brahman, but they meditate just in the void.
See, how many Jnanis do we know? You know about Mayavadis. Mayavadis don't accept. This is actually a very detailed and big discussion. Mayavadis, they decry the form of the Lord. Okay. So they don't actually go to Brahmajyoti because of their offenses. They cannot attend to Brahmajyoti. Okay. So Brahmavadis they can, but if you see examples in Shastra of Brahmavadis, I know of 2. Okay. One is Shukdev Goswami and Kumaras. We don't hear about anybody else. Actually, I have not heard of anybody else. Okay. So the attaining of this Brahman realization or going to Brahmajyoti, okay, we hear of only these 2. Brahman realization for us is to engage in spiritual activities and differentiating between matter and spirit. That itself is Brahman realization from a devotion point of view. Okay. And if someone has to attain to that, then he also has to render devotion service. That is there. Prabhupada, in one of his purports, he writes that. I'll have to find a reference for it. In the second canto, I think second canto, 4th chapter, somewhere he writes that even to attain to Brahman, okay, even to get back to Brahman realization, one should render devotion service. Maybe we can search. I don't know. 2, 4, 6, the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Somewhere in the Bhagavad Gita only, I think. That Brahman realization also should be overcoat of devotion service.
No, here in Purport it came today.
15th verse.
Oh, it came in the Purport today.
15.
Liberation should be overcoated with bhakti, karma. Karma should be overcoated with karma.
Yes, I was thinking of some other. Where is it?
That's about little
Liberation.
Kirati.
Liberation from
Karma overcoated with devotion. Karma yoga, but jnana yoga.
Yeah.
Liberation from material body.
Attainment of space.
Where is it? Okay, such knowledge. Attainment of spiritual knowledge is not sufficient to ensure liberation. Such knowledge must be overcome with devotional service so that ultimately devotional service on. See, here we are talking about devotees. We are not talking about Brahmavadis.
Mishra Bhakti. Jnana Mishra Karma Mishra.
This is Jnana Mishra Bhakti.
So
Yeah, see, okay, Jnana Mishra Bhakti is a starting point. Okay. But ultimately, it should it should go to Bhakti Yoga. From Jnana Mishra Bhakti, the Jnana should go away. Jnana means basically, see, Jnana means we are not speaking about transcendental knowledge about Krishna. There are two types of Jnanas, right? When we speak about transcendental knowledge that devotees gain, it's about the positive knowledge about Krishna, his form, activities, pastimes, about rendering devotional service onto him. So Jnana is a supplement, or is like the pushing factor, for our devotional service. Okay, when we speak about Jnana Mishra Bhaktas, for them, Jnana itself is one of the goals. For us, Jnana is not the goal. For us, Bhakti is the goal. Or Bhakti should be the goal actually. It's not that it should be. So Bhakti is the goal and Jnana is supplementing that goal. But Jnana Mishra Bhaktas, when we speak about it, it's about Jnana itself is a goal for them. So they can start at that point. Okay, this attainment of spiritual knowledge, they can start at that point. But then devotional service alone predominates. Only devotional service should be there if you want to attain liberation or if you want to go back to the spiritual world. If you have the tinge of jnana, then it is not possible. Now you can go to Brahmajyoti, but not to the Supreme Abode. That reference is there. Okay, I have to find that reference where Prabhupada specifically says that to go to impersonal Brahmajyoti also needs some amount of devotional service. And coming from my family background, I know that they do deity worship. Predominantly, it's deity worship. Okay, for all the smarthas who are this Advaitavadis and all, for them deity worship is the means. Panchopasana, basically, yeah. But Panchopasana also, Vishnu worship should be there. If they're worshipping the demigods, again, no, not much they can gain from it. And one more thing is, if they have this idea that Vishnu is also one of the material manifestation of the Brahman, I don't know that. If they think that the form of the Lord is Sattva-guna, it's of one of the gunas, then it's basically an offense. So they will not go, they will not attain Brahmajyoti.
Amazing shloka is Shri Vishnu Sarveshwareshati Naraki Saha. Whoever is placing Vishnu
on the same level as the other demigods, then his buddhi is Naraki, his hellish consciousness he has. Yeah, so hellish consciousness means they go to hell probably. They will not go to Brahmajyoti. Yes. Attaining Brahmajyoti is quite difficult.
So means only Brahmavadis attains.
Yeah, Brahmavadis can attain. Very, should be very rare. As I told, 2 people. And they also turn into devotees. So we don't know who are there in Brahmajyoti. They will be there. The living entities are there everywhere. So we might not have personally seen.
From other units.
But there are living entities who are in Brahmajyoti. Just like Gokul Prabhu says, kept in freezer, then shut the fridge, forgotten, that's all. They are there, that's all. And ultimately they fall down also. So we cannot really say that permanently they are in Brahmajyoti. It's not actually spiritual revelation. Even though they attain, they again fall down. So maybe that's why we don't hear their names. Because they are not there in the Brahmajyoti at all. Whoever goes, he stays there for some time, then comes back again. So maybe constant transformation is going.
So to here means Jnana Mishra Bhakti is stated and Karma Mishra Bhakti.
Jnana Mishra and Karma Mishra Bhakti. Karma overcoated devotional service. Karma Yoga is basically, it's Bhakti Mishra Karma, you can say. Because karma is your... See, okay, we can get into all these technical details. Okay, it works the both way. If a person's, what is his actual goal? Okay, his goal is fruitive activities and he's doing devotional service for that, then it's Bhakti Mishra Karma, you can say. If he is doing, his main goal is devotional service, but then some tinge of karma is also there, some tinge of fruitive activity, fruitive mentality is also there, And you can say, okay, karma mishra bhakti. Bhakti is a little bit tinged with karma also, we can say. So it's the other, it's not that karma mishra bhakti and bhakti mishra karma are both the same things. All these things depend on what actually is the goal of a person. Okay, what is the goal of the person and what situation he is in presently. Based on that, then we'll have all these different varieties. Karma mishra yoga, karma mishra bhakti, jnana mishra bhakti, bhakti mishra karma. I know this big list. Actually that Baladev Devotion and Vishnu gives in the Bhagavad Gita commentary. So many things, so many intricacies are there. But to resolve this, you can just understand what actually is the person's goal and in which state is he situated. And from that stage, how is going to attain that goal. Okay. Basically, Sambandha, Vidya and Prayojana. In three these things, you can categorize each one of these things. It's like that. Is that clear? I did not confuse you, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
So second rule,
Yes.
we heard in this Nashtrapraya Svabhadreshu Shloka,
Yes.
almost eradicated.
Almost eradicated, yes.
From the next verse explanation, when it is 75%, it is eradicated. From the next verse, when the Rajas and Tamas, when we give up, other 25 also we are relieved of. But I heard one devotee mentioning that why it is almost destroyed, why it is mentioned like that, because we can do from our endeavor whatever we may do, but even so much we do unless there is a Lord's mercy. So nothing can be fully cleansed off.
Yeah.
So that's why it's almost, when we do fully, it's almost eradicated, but unless the Lord gives His mercy, so it's not fully done. So is it correct or?
Yeah, we can say that. But see, at least in these two verses, when we say the 19th verse, it says that the rest, the whole, all Rajatamo, everything is done, Kamalobha, everything is done. Here also we do not see that the Lord mercy should be there like this.
Then it will not
Okay,
become...
see, I do not want to I am not saying that the Lord mercy is not required, it's a mechanical process. Definitely Lord mercy is required. But that is gained by Mahat Seva. Okay, so that is the point. By Mahat Seva itself, the Lord is pleased.
Because if we see 75 from that word...
See, 75% is just what
okay,
1%.
kind of,
okay, yes.
kind of.
Almost when we say. Yeah.
So 25 from this, then it completely, from outwardly it looks like from our own endeavor we are trying to achieve.
No, not like that. No, because it's very clearly mentioned. Krishna cleanses the heart, right? We saw that verse also. It's Krishna who is cleaning. We are not. Where is that? There was one verse, no? I think above.
This next 5.
Not this one.
Srivatam.
Vidnoti Suhrit Satam. Yes, I think that was the one. See, Sri Krishna, he is there in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee. He cleanses the desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. And I also told that this urge comes by this serving the devotees, Mahat Seva. So Krishna is the one who is cleaning. So yes, by Krishna's mercy, he only cleanses everything. From our side, it's our sincerity and association with the devotees. It's the same thing. Yeah. So Krishna is, if he does not want to clean, then it looks like it's not possible. Okay. So we make ourselves eligible. Okay. For that by entering service. Okay.
The next one from the Excel sheet.
That Excel sheet. Yes.
So here we see Chaita Etair Anaviddham.
Cheta Etair Anaviddham. Yes.
Ruchis, we attain Ruchi. Taste for. Then Sthitam Sattve Prasidati, we attain Asakti.
Yeah.
But previously when we see Nashtrapraya Svabhadresha, unless we are cleared of Anartha from Raja and Tama, unless we are situated in Sattva Guna, so how do we develop the Ruchi? Because the Sattva Guna is mentioned later, after the Ruchi.
Sattva Guna is mentioned later, okay, after Ruchi.
But unless we are cleared of Rajas and Tamas, unless we are situated...
That's what it's saying, no? Tada Rajas Tamo Bhava Kamalo Bhata Yashchi. So these two are cleared. When these two are cleared, then Cheta Eter Anavidyam. So when these things are cleared, then Ruchi comes. And one is situated in Sattva. Sthitam Sattve Prasidati.
So whole world.
So anyway, when the
for
Ruchi is
both-
there, both. But when Ruchi is there, there's no question of Raja, Tama, Kama, Lobha, Adi. All those things are not there at that point. So we cannot have taste if we have taste for the Lord.
So
If we have taste for material.
So if ஆசக்தின்றது சத்துவகுணத்துல இருந்தாதான் or it's not like that.
See, when we say about Sattva, it should be Shuddha Sattva at this point.
Oh.
Okay. So Asakti means attachment to the Lord. Okay. Sattva Guna means there's attachment to the material things also. Peacefulness. Okay, calmness, knowledge, things like that. These are material attachments. When we say asakti, then firm attachment to the Lord is what we are speaking about. See, there might be very small tinge of sattva-guna also. Okay, see, actually, as far as I remember, I think the acharyas mentioned that even up to the bhava stage, there are still some offenses left. Some offenses means some anartha is left. Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, Jadabharata is an example. So I don't remember. It's a long time back before I read since I read this. So he says something is left in bhava also. Okay, so that means some tinge of the guna is there. Sattva guna or very fine sattva guna maybe. So obviously ruchi and asakti it might be there. Okay, it might be there. Even in firm attachment to the Lord, there might be something.
So in this Uttam Sattva, if you see that this Sattva can refer to Sattva.
This sattva can refer to that sattva also. I don't know. Okay, I have to find out how this is.
So means Evam Prasamana also that next sloka will come. And then Prabhupada you say that in purport that Brahmanas is Sattva-guna, so they also have to go above.
They have to go also beyond. Yes.
Beyond.
Yeah, but here thus established in the mode of unalloyed goodness. You say, Evam Prasamana so Bhagavad Bhakti Yogata Bhagavad Tattva Vijnanam. So where is this unalloyed goodness here? Okay, it's there only in translation. Okay, so this is the point. So in the 20th verse, only in unalloyed goodness one attains bhava and prema stage. So before he does not say unalloyed goodness. I think he says only establishing goodness. So even asakti, I think it's some tinge of sattva-guna is there.
So aim is Sattva-guna, not Vishuddha Sattva-guna.
See, it's one or the other. Okay, it's not like that.
It's not black and white.
It's not black and white. It's not always black and white. Because attachment for the Lord, you cannot gain from the modes. Okay. Yes. See, when we speak about nishtha, nishtha and anartha nivritti and all, so most of the contamination of the heart is removed. Okay. So then we cannot again say that the heart is contaminated by the modes. So there is that transcendental potency also. The transcendental thing is also there when anartha is removed. Something is there. This is how I understand it. Okay. It might not be complete, but something is there. Okay. It's like a game of seesaw. One goes up and down, one goes up and down. It will not happen during asakti stage, but in our stage itself, when we are chanting. Okay. When we are chanting and we are concentrating. Okay. Might not be for one full round, but all 5-6 mantras, 5-6 times we are moving the beats and we are concentrating completely with full understanding that we are not, or rather Krishna's name is not different from Krishna. Then we cannot say that's influenced by the modes at that point of time, exactly at that moment. Okay. Because that is the proper transcendental way of understanding things. So we are not fixed in transcendental Shuddha Sattva. We go and come back because of our Krishna, our attraction to this material nature. So it's like a wave. It's like it goes up, it comes down. This is my understanding. I'll try to find out some references. Okay. It's 12:05. Is that okay?
Yeah, others.
Yeah. No, I don't have a problem. So if that's okay with you, I think we can continue.
As you mentioned
Yes.
in the class, unless we realize the Lord, we cannot realize ourselves.
Yes.
But many places, Prabhupada, we heard in Prabhupada's lecture, first you realize yourself, first you understand who you are, then you try to understand.
That's understanding who you are, that you are not this body or this spirit. In that context, Prabhupada says that. Okay, but once you understand you are not this body or this spirit, this is your constitutional position. then he does not recommend Jnana path. No, he does not say, okay, you distinguish between matter and spirit and all. He says, okay, Baba, start doing devotional service. And by doing devotional service itself, then you realize the Lord and you realize yourself also. At this point of time, we don't have the realization, or I can speak of myself. I don't have the realization that we are not this body or this spirit. I know it. I'm convinced of this fact. But the realization is a different thing altogether.
Understanding and realizing.
Understanding and realizing are two different things. We all have understanding. Okay.
Yeah.
At least, speaking of myself, I had understanding. But realizing it, being completely indifferent to everything that happens to your material body and all, that happens when you realize, when you're fully engaged in devotional service. Prabhupada's example also, when the body is going through so much pain, fully satisfied, but I am not like that. We are not like that. Something happens to the body, then we are pain. We experience pain, even though we know that we are not this body, we are the soul. The understanding is there, but realization is not there.
There's an example, Bhagavad means without body realization, there cannot be self-realization. Just like sun, without sun, you can't see ourselves.
Yes.
We can't see ourselves. First, we have to take sun will come.
Correct. So understanding is there, but realization is a different thing altogether. Okay, that's all. Okay, any other questions you have?
This in 29 Shloka Vasudeva Param Tapa.
Yes.
This it is said that
all severe austerities are performed to know him.
Yeah.
Yes.
But Krishna himself says in Bhagavad Gita, Bhakti Amam Abhijanati, I can be understood only through bhakti.
Yes. Yeah, bhakti is the only way of understanding him. There is no other way. But people who perform severe austerities, who do tapasya, they are also supposed to perform the tapasya to know the Supreme Lord.
If we cannot understand through tapasya, then
they will not get liberated, they will not attend devotional service, they will not know the Lord. What is being said here is that the purpose of all the activities that a person can do, which are recommended in the Vedic literature, the purpose should be to attain the Supreme Lord. Now other people might be doing so many other things. They might be doing sacrifices, and they might be engaged in fruitive activities. They might be engaging in cultivating jnana. They might be engaged in tapasya. But if they do not know that all these things are meant to know him, then it's shamayahi kevalam. That is one point. And because these activities are recommended in the Vedic literatures, they'll get some benefit. But those benefits will only be material. They'll not be spiritual benefits. So when he says all severe austerities are performed to know him, it basically means it should be performed to know him. That is the idea here. But there are people who do not do it in that way. They do not perform to know him. They perform for so many other.
But can we know him by performing tapasya?
We can be in the line, as Krishna says, everybody follows my path. So this is one of the paths. But we want to understand the Supreme Lord fully, that devotional service is the only way. It's just like, we say, you perform sacrifices. Perform sacrifices and performing yoga also. All these activities can be engaged in with an idea of gaining knowledge about the Lord. But when we say about devotional service or bhakti, now there's a direct interaction with the Supreme Lord. But when you are doing severe austerities, is there an exchange of the service being rendered between the served and the one who is being served? The servant and the served. There is no exchange. Correct? These activities are being done, but there is no reciprocation from the Lord. So by austerities, we can attain to a certain level. Just like this, by jnana, we can attain Brahman realization. By yoga, we can attain Paramatma realization. And that's it. So when we speak about the severe austerities, jnanis would undergo severe austerities. Yogis would undergo severe austerities. But they can go till Paramatma realization. Beyond that, they cannot. To know beyond that, to know the Bhagavan, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that is possible only through devotional service. So when performing austerity to know the Lord, you can know something. Paramatma realization is possible. but devotion is required. See, in Bhagavatam is said, in Bhagavatam, see, Dhruva Maharaj performed austerities. Okay. And Kardama Muni performed austerities. We all performed austerities. Prishni and Sutapadi performed austerities.
Atri
and Anusaya. Atri was kind of confused. Okay. So they performed austerities. Yeah. But austerities are to be performed to know him. And anyways, we will see when Dhruva Maharaj's system comes. So they performed austerities, yoga practice and other things, but these practices are performed with the devotion attitude.
possible for that age.
Possible for that age, but still not to attain, to go back to Godhead, devotion is required. Okay, does not matter which yuga it is. Kali Yuga, Satya Yuga, Dwapar, Treta, does not matter. Only by devotional service you can enter into the spiritual world. Without bhakti, because what will you do? No? One thing is you cannot enter, the Trishul will throw you out. Another thing is, even if you go, just for hypothetical sake, even if you go, what will you do there without devotional service? No? The Lord is there, His eternal associates are there, everybody is engaged in service. If we do not have the inclination to do service, how can we even enter the supreme world, spiritual world? It's not possible. So it does not matter which yuga it is. In Sattva Yuga, practices would be different, but the goal is devotion only. Okay, meditating for these many years. That might be the process. Now, just like the process here is chanting of Hare Krishna, Kali Yuga. Correct? So this process is very direct. We are chanting Krishna's name, who is not different from Krishna. Very, very direct process. You can go. But in Dwapar Yuga, temple worship, Treta Yuga, big sacrifices, then Satya Yuga, meditation and all these things are rendered as an activity of devotional service. And even, see, by doing those, probably you can go to Vaikuntha Loka. Maybe, but going to Golok Vrindavan requires Harinam Sankirtan. Right? That's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's this mission, this Kali Yuga is very amazing already. We are very fortunate because we have that opportunity to go to the topmost spiritual realm. Golok Vrindavan. Otherwise, other yugas, because Mahaprabhu is not there, Harinam Sankirtan is not there, you get liberated, but Golok Vrindavan, doubtful. No? Doubtful what? Looks quite rare. Unless someone cultivates pure devotional service even in those yugas. Now the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, okay, that's Dwapar Yuga. Anyways, so there Gopakumar. Gopakumar, he was in that time, he was not in Kali Yuga at that time, as I understand. But he went to Golok Vrindavan. Correct? Oh, don't worry about it if you don't know. Okay. So he went to Golok Vrindavan. So it's possible, but no, it's not so prevalent or it's not so easy to know about that. Difficult. Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.